Would it surprise you if I said that Walt Disney Animation Studios did not win their first Oscar for Best Animated Feature until 2014? If I heard that out of context, I would be very shocked, but it's a bit of a dishonest way to frame the history. The Academy Award for Best Animated Feature was first awarded in 2002, so while Disney has been making animated features since all the way back in the 1930s, the earliest they could have possibly won this award was 2002. The reason this category only came into existence more recently is because there just weren't enough other animated films being made to have any sort of competition. They couldn't fill out the nominees. Cartoon shorts, however, were a different story. Disney won its first ever Oscar in 1932 for Flowers and Trees in the cartoon short subject category, and they would continue to rack up awards in this category over the years. Even though there was nowhere appropriate to really nominate them for animated features, the Academy would periodically award Walt Disney Pictures with special honorary Oscars to acknowledge some of their exceptional achievements. The first of these was awarded to Walt Disney in 1932 for the creation of Mickey Mouse. The second was also to Walt for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1939. It was recognized as a significant screen innovation which has charmed millions and pioneered a great new entertainment field for the motion picture cartoon. I'm extremely glad that Snow White and Walt were honored in this way. And a delightful detail about this award is that it was presented as one traditional statuette accompanied by 7 miniatures on a stepped base.
I'm sure the boys and girls in the whole world are going to be very happy when they find out that the daddy of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Ferdinand, Mickey Mouse, and all the others, is going to get this beautiful statue. Isn't it bright and shiny?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Aren't you proud of it, Mr. Disney?
Well, I'm so proud I think I'll bust.
Last year I was in Disneyland during Oscars season, and they actually had this on display in Carthay Circle Theater, the replica of the building where Snow White premiered back in 1937. I was thrilled to get to see this. It's just too good. Fantasia also received a couple of special awards in 1942 for the creator's outstanding contribution to the advancement of the use of sound in motion pictures and for the creation of a new form of visualized music. One of my favorite special awards is when Walt Disney Productions won the top technical award for the design and application to production of the multiplane camera in 1938. Disney Animation's use of the multiplane camera was revolutionary and such a defining feature of their classic animated pictures. It's so cool to know that the layers you're seeing on screen are actual tangible layers in reality. I miss how creative people used to have to be. Pinocchio was the first Walt Disney Animation Studios film to win an Oscar, and it actually won 2 of them in 1941. When You Wish Upon a Star won for song, and the movie also won for original score. It's entirely too fitting that the first true Oscar win for a Disney full-length animated feature was for that song. It continues to be the company's identity to this day. Walt Disney Animation would go on to win for Dumbo's original score in 1942 and for Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day in 1969 in the cartoon short subject category. The reason I bring up the short winning is because it ended up being included in a feature-length animated film, 1977's The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The studio experienced a break just over 30 years until their next wins, which came in the form of Best Song and Score for The Little Mermaid in 1990. I think we all know that the 90s was an especially strong decade for Disney animation. Known as the Renaissance, this was one of the most successful, lucrative times for the studio, and the Oscar wins reflected that. The music of the films in this decade piled up the awards. Alan Menken in particular dominated the original score category this decade. There are 3 things I'd like to note here. 1. The Little Mermaid had 2 songs nominated for Best Song, and neither of them were part of your world. 2. How did The Circle of Life not win? 3. Beauty and the Beast actually has the very special distinction of also being nominated for Best Picture. It was the first animated film to ever be included in this category, and since then, only Up and Toy Story 3 have joined in 2010 and 2011 respectively. I think it's worth noting that Beauty and the Beast earned its nomination back before animation had its own category and before the nominations were expanded to 10. Now let's actually get to the meat and potatoes, the Best Animated Feature category. As I stated previously, this category was first added in 2002 at the 74th Academy Awards. By this time, enough competition had emerged in the field of animation to give Disney someone to be nominated next to. DreamWorks Animation was the most prominent, and the irony behind that is that DreamWorks was founded by the former, and somewhat notorious, Disney executive Jeffrey Katzenberg. The first movie to win Best Animated Feature was none other than Shrek. It was nominated alongside Monsters Inc. and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. It is a little bit of a sore spot for me that Monsters Inc. didn't win, but Shrek is certainly a deserving and iconic first winner for the category. And Monsters Inc. got an Oscar for Best Song, so it's all good. Even though this category didn't exist until 2002, it still took Walt Disney Animation Studios until 2014 to actually win it. This is because Disney was in the midst of the post-Renaissance at the category's inception. In other words, they were not in prime form to be competing. You know who was though, was Pixar. Their first win was for Finding Nemo in 2004, but they actually received one of those special honorary Oscars for Toy Story in 1996. It was presented to John Lasseter, director and co-writer of Toy Story, for the development and inspired application of techniques that have made possible the first feature-length computer animated film. To date, Pixar has won 11 out of 18 nominations. From 2003 to 2012, they were basically a dynasty. Their best stint being from 2007 to 2010 when they found themselves with a 4-year winning streak. While wins for Pixar are also wins for Disney, they aren't the focus of my video today as I'm specifically looking at Walt Disney Animation Studios, but I could not mention their insane dominance over the years. I do also want to say quickly that I think it's really funny how Brave beat Wreck-It Ralph. The Academy must not have been accustomed to Disney Animation making a better product than Pixar, because what the hell. There is one more thing to mention while on the topic of Pixar, and that is circling back to Up and Toy Story 3's Best Picture nominations. There had been a criticism of the Best Animated Feature category, saying that it was only there to relegate animated films to, and thus not have to acknowledge them in the Best Picture conversation. The peak of this criticism came when WALL-E, one of the best reviewed movies of 2008, did not receive a Best Picture nomination, only a Best Animated Feature nod. At this time, Best Picture still had just 5 slots. It was very exclusive. Unrelated to animation, an even bigger uproar occurred when Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight was shut out of a Best Picture nomination that same year. The Academy heard this and adjusted accordingly, as the following year, Best Picture expanded to 10 slots and saw an animated film, Up, take one of those slots. Toy Story 3 followed suit the year after. An animated film has not been nominated for Best Picture since. There are arguably a handful of movies that deserve to be, but it is what it is. Here's hoping we'll see another one soon. In 2013, Walt Disney Animation Studios would release an enchanting movie about 2 struggling sisters in the majestic, wintry Norwegian fjords, and they would proceed to take over the world. Frozen, no matter your feelings on it, was a global phenomenon, and it won Walt Disney Animation Studios its first ever Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Finally! I understand why, but I still can't believe it took them until then. Countless movies from their catalog would have more than deserved the honor, but it just wasn't even a thing. And then when it did become a thing, they sucked. I'm happy they found their way to it eventually. It was pretty much inevitable. And they even found a few more. In 2015, Big Hero 6 won, in 2017 it was Zootopia, and most recently, 2022 was Encanto. I'm just glad and relieved that the studio who literally invented the game got their flowers. It does sadden me a little that mostly all of the winners for Best Animated Feature have been computer animated films. Spirited Away is the only hand-drawn one. Interestingly, Disney did get to be included on that win because they handled the North American distribution and acted as executive producer for the English dubbed version of the movie. Other than that, 2 stop-motion films have won: Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit in 2006, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio in 2023. I don't have anything against computer animated films. I think they can make wonderful movies. It just feels like they came at the cost of traditional animation, and that's depressing. However, if computer animated films start looking more like the Spider-Verse movies or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I would love that. Disney seemed to try something different with Wish that wasn't the most well received, but maybe they'll find their way. I certainly hope so. As of 2024, Disney has won a total of 150 Oscars. Walt Disney Animation Studios, specifically, by my count, has 19. Walt Disney personally has won 32, and by far holds the record for Oscars won by a single person, and that is Guinness World Records certified. I don't know, I just love Oscars season, and seeing as they just occurred this month, I thought, why don't I combine my love for Disney and the Oscars and make this video. By the way, how funny is it that Disney's 4 most recent Oscars are credited to Poor Things? I know that the Academy Awards and awards season in general can feel a bit self-serving and like Hollywood patting itself on the back, but I love movies and the celebration of them. I'm still catching up and learning and growing so much. It's just really special and enjoyable to me, and I'd love to see animation continue to garner more respect within the industry. It would be a dream to see another animated feature be up for Best Picture, and maybe even win it one day. For too long, animation has been relegated to being something just for kids, and it would be fantastic to see that presumption be blown out of the water. Guillermo del Toro is one of the strongest voices and advocates we have for animation today. In a tweet from November 16, 2018, del Toro quoted a Brad Bird tweet and said that animation is a medium, not a genre, nor an interest for kids and families only. He continued with this sentiment in his speech when he won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature with Pinocchio in 2023.
Animation is cinema. Animation is not a genre. And animation is ready to be taken to the next step. We are all ready for it. Please help us. Keep animation in the conversation.
Here's to the glorious medium of animation. Thank you so much for watching my little exploration into the history of Disney animation and the Academy Awards. Let me know what your favorite winner has been in the Best Animated Feature category in the comments below. Mine probably has to be Ratatouille. If you liked this video, consider hitting like and subscribe, and head over to the Trove to check out more Disney content like rankings, video essays, reviews, trivia videos, and more. Thanks again for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.